Reading from the book of Sirach. God from the earth created man. In his own image he made him. He makes man return to earth again and endows him with the strength of his own. Limited days of life he gives him, with power over all things else on earth. He puts the fear of him in all flesh, and he gives him rule over beasts and birds. He created for them counsel, and a tongue, and eyes, and ears, and an inventive heart, and filled them with the discipline of understanding. He created in them knowledge of the Spirit. With wisdom he fills their heart. Good and evil he shows them. He put the fear of himself upon their hearts, and showed them his mighty works, that they might glory in the wonder of his deeds and praise his holy name. He has set before them with knowledge a law of life as their inheritance. An everlasting covenant he has made with them. His justice and his judgments he has revealed to them. His majestic glory their eyes beheld. His glorious voice their ears heard. He says to them, avoid all evil. Each of them he gives precepts about his fellow men. Their ways are ever known to him. They cannot be hidden from his eye. Our every nation he places a ruler, but God's own portion is Israel. All our actions are clear as the sun to him. His eyes are ever upon their ways. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Responsorial Psalm. The King's God kindness is everlasting to those who fear him.
The Lord's kindness is everlasting to those who fear him.
As the Father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear him. For he knows how we are formed. He remembers that we are dust.
The Lord's kindness is everlasting to those who fear him.
Man's days are like those of grass. Like a flower of the field he blooms. The wind sweeps over him, and he is gone, and his place knows him no more. But the kindness of the Lord is to eternity towards those who fear him, and his justice towards children's children, among those who keep his covenant. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Blessed are you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth. You have revealed to little ones the mysteries of the kingdom. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. People were bringing their children to Jesus that he might touch them, but the disciples rebuked them. When Jesus saw this, he became indignant and said to them, let the children come to me, do not prevent them, for the kingdom of God belongs to such as these. Amen, I say to you, whoever does not accept the kingdom of God like a child will not enter it. And then he embraced the children, placed his hands upon them, and blessed them. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Good morning. One of the things that Jesus is insistent upon in the gospel is that We have to become like children in order to enter the kingdom of heaven, which is in itself rather strange teaching, because when you think about it, we spend our whole life trying to grow up. Our whole life, we spend it trying to grow up. And yet, Jesus says, unless you become like a child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven. So I ask myself, what are some of the childlike gifts that we need to retain as we outgrow childhood? One of the marvelous things about children is their innate curiosity. And not just their curiosity, but their willingness to act upon it. Think about it as a child. You see a mud puddle. Why not play it? And you do. As a child, you see a handful of dirt. Why not eat it? And so you try it. That's what children do. They have different set of eyes that are open in wonder to all that is out there. And then they're willing to act upon it. One of the great joys for me was to be in parishes that always had a Catholic school, in every parish but one. And one of the things that I so appreciated was I experienced the difference between kindergarten and 8th grade. And how much we lose over those years. Here, if you're at a liturgy at the school mass, and you say the prayers, the little ones, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, you say the Lord be with you, they go, and with you! They just belt it out. But you look over at the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and with you. You know, there's something that gets lost in terms of our enthusiasm. So curiosity and wonder, and the willingness to act upon it. And Jesus had that. Think about two of his great teachings. In Matthew's Gospel, love your enemies. And think about how he reached that conclusion. He said, God lets the sun shine on the good and the bad. And God lets the rain fall on the crops of the good and the wicked. And if God is indiscriminate in pouring out love, why shouldn't I try to do that? And so I say to you, love your enemies. He just looked at it, used his eyes to see what God was doing. The other one I love so much is where he says, look at the birds of the air, the flowers of the field, the grasses that grow. And if God cares for them, how much more will not God care for you? I mean, he became an adult, but he didn't lose the wonder of what life presented to him. His eyes continued to be open to it. So I think curiosity and the willingness to act upon it is such an important virtue for those of us who outgrow being children. And the other thing that is so important about a child is they know how to be dependent. They know how to be dependent. They know that they need others to care for them. And that, again, is something we struggle to move beyond. I mean, we talk about wanting to be independent. We don't want to be a burden on others. And yet, ultimately, all of us are dependent upon our gracious God and God's grace. Children understand their dependency. We tend to lose sight of it. And many times in our adult journey, especially when things aren't working out the way we think they should, we lose our sense of dependence on God's provident care and love. Children have a lot to teach us. We spend our whole life outgrowing being a child, but we dare not lose some of the gifts we have as children.